Okay, so here we are for part 2 of protein formation. Again, the end that we have, the goal that we have, is the formation of a protein. So also called a polypeptide chain. What I'm circling right now, that's our end. This is our end goal. What we've done so far is we have recognized that we needed to have a particular protein, unzipped the DNA at the part that it needed to be unzipped, translated the specific spot that we needed, adjusted it, made a transcript of that, and now we're going to translate it. So transcription is done. Now we're moving on to translation. We talked about the fact that once mRNA goes into the cytoplasm, it's going to be attacked. I'm going to draw a little Pac-Man here. That Pac-Man actually can begin attacking this poly A tail and eating the poly A tail. But what it needs to do, the mRNA, is it needs to find a ribosome. Now that ribosome can be in one of two places. It can be a free-floating ribosome. If it's a simple protein, or that ribosome can be attached to the endoplasmic reticulum. So that ribosome can be sitting on the endoplasmic reticulum. And that's going to certainly all transmembrane proteins will be like that, or specific proteins that need to be protected by phospholipids will be that way. So those are the two places that the mRNA is going to go to. And so now we'll move on to looking at what that's going to look like. In order for amino acids to be basically coded with mRNA, they need to be brought to the correct location and they need to be matched up. The tool that does this is tRNA, or transfer RNA. This is what transfer RNA looks like. There's a part up here, which is the 3' part that is going to bond to the amino acid. So in those other images, when you see a big ball or a circle, that's the amino acid there. And then there's the anticodon part here. This is what matches up with the mRNA match. So it matches up with the codon of the mRNA. The tRNA is going to get the specific amino acid by going to a specific protein. This is the protein right here, aminoacetyl transferase. And what it does is it bonds with a specific amino acid, and it bonds with a specific strand of tRNA, and then it sticks the amino acid onto the tRNA. And so then this is the end product. This is ready to go to the ribosome. And then you're like, well, where do these empty ones come from? You can think of these as trucks, dump trucks. They bring the amino acid to the ribosome, drop the amino acid off, and then return back to the aminoacetyl tRNA enzyme to get another one. And this is the site of the ribosome. So the ribosome actually consists of two parts, a large and a small subunit. They come together during the process of translation, so they don't actually exist generally together unless translation is happening. The mRNA is going to have what's called a start codon at the beginning. That's going to bring the two parts of the ribosome together, and the ribosome is part RNA and part protein. Is a mixture of the both. And then you're going to have 3 sites in the ribosome that are going to match with the strand of mRNA. So you'll have this A site, P site. Oh, I'm doing that wrong. and E site here. And so what happens is as the mRNA goes across, the tRNA matches first at this A initiation site, which stands for aminoacetyl, which I know isn't the most helpful thing, but it's where you get this first acetyl bond. Then you go to the P site, which is this is where you're forming the peptide bond. So you remember we talked about peptide bonds. So the peptide bond between the amino acids forms here. And then finally the E site, which stands for exit. And at that point, you have a break between the amino acid and the tRNA. The empty tRNA leaves, goes back to the tRNA transferase to get a new amino acid, and then the cycle continues. So remember, because there are 20 different amino acids, there are going to be 20 different trucks or 20 different tRNAs. Each one is going to pick up a specific amino acid and bring it to the specific site. Now, how does the ribosome know which truck to grab? It uses the codon. So here, the codon is AAA. So the only truck that's going to work for this specific codon is UUU. So this is the truck that it needs, and then lysine is the amino acid. Similarly, this codon, or the sequence of mRNA, is GUG, so therefore the only truck that's going to work is CAC. And that tRNA carries valine. And so the sequence of amino acids is a complement to the sequence of mRNA, which of course is reflected by the sequence of DNA. That's not DNR, DNA. So that's reflected by the sequence of DNA. So the question here is, why does it take 3 nitrogenous bases in order to form a codon? And the answer is simply that you have 20 different amino acids that you're trying to code for, so you have to get 20 different variations, and you only have 4 different nucleic acids. So obviously 4 to the 0 power, just 4 is, or 4 to the 1 is 4. That would only give you 4 different amino acids. 4 to the 2 would give you 16 different amino acids. So you have to have 4 to the 3. Now that's 64, which is way more than you need. But since you need 20, you can't go with 16. So the reason that you have 3 codons is that's the only way that you can organize 4 different amino acids in different variations to get over 20 different possible codes. All right, and so this shows you again exactly what goes on. You start here with codon recognition, so that's the start codon. So you get a series of 3 letters at the beginning of the mRNA that say start. That brings together the 2 parts of the ribosome. The mRNA moves across, tRNA comes in, and the polypeptide chain grows. Then this is the growing part, that's the translocation part. Finally, at the very end, you have a stop codon, and that causes the 2 parts of the ribosome to break apart. The mRNA is freed, the polypeptide chain, that is to say the protein, breaks off, and that's how you end up with the protein. Amino acids are transferred, tRNA helps make the protein. So the next slide, the next 2 slides show actually this universal code. So this is the codon for the amino acids. And the way this one works is the first codon is in this group right here. So your mRNA could have a G, U, A, or C for the first codon. The second codon is this second ring, right? It's a little ugly. So your mRNA could have a second codon and then third codon. So for instance, in this example, what would the situation be? We'll start at the beginning. What would happen if you had DNA and the DNA started with TAC? Okay, and I'll have you do this, but I'll tell you what I want you to do. So first of all, if you go from the DNA, your mRNA polymerase would say, oh, well, T needs to turn into an A is going to turn into a U, C is going to turn into a G, right? So then this is your mRNA is going to be AUG. And then you would look over here, you would see A, U, G, and you see that the amino acid is methylamine. So you just do MET. By the way, MET is also the start codon. So that's the start. And you could go to the next one. A is U, G is C, T is A. So now we're looking for UCA. So we're using the mRNA to get this. So then that's U, C, A, and that's serine. So we would write SER as the next sequence of amino acids. And you go all the way through to the end until you got to ATT, which again is going to be UAA. And then you'll see that UAA is actually a stop codon. So at the very end, you would have the amino acid saying stop. And then the question here is how many nitrogenous bases are needed to make a protein that's 53 amino acids long? So how would you do that? You would take 53, multiply it by 3 at least, right? And so that's 159. If you remember, you're going to have a stop codon. You would add another 3 there, say 162. And that's assuming you don't have any introns or exons. This just shows you how you can get different mutations. So again, we have the codon chart there. This first one shows you, so this is what is supposed to happen, right? This is exactly what we just went over. We have methionine, serine, proline, valine, and stop. SDP stands for stop. Okay. If instead of an A here, we had a T, when we translated that, that would be GAA. And in that case, instead of valine, we would end up with glutamate. Okay. So that would be a mutation. You'd have a different amino acid. That amino acid would change the shape of the protein. However, it's also possible that you could end up with what's called a neutral mutation. So in this case, let's go here. Instead of the T, what we have over here is a C. Well, that C gets translated to a G, but G, U, G gives you a valine in the same way that GUA gives you a valine, because all of these are the same. So this is called a neutral point mutation. It's still a mutation, but it doesn't change the sequence of amino acids. If it doesn't change the sequence of amino acids, it's not going to change the protein. So these are point mutations because they're only changing a single amino acid. Point, 1 pointage. You can also have a frame shift mutation. So in a frame shift mutation, what's going to happen is instead of the normal sequence, so again, that's our normal sequence, what would happen if we lost that T? So if we lost that T, what I hope you see is we'd end up with that for the DNA. So we'd end up with ACA and UGU, not AUG. Well, if that were the case, not only would you have the wrong first amino acid, you'd end up with the wrong second, the wrong third, the wrong fourth. Additionally, you wouldn't even end up with a stop mutation here, right? You could end up with something else, and the protein could go on. So frameshift mutations, whether you have a deletion, this would be a deletion, right? Or you could also have an insertion. They are going to be much, much more consequential. This is just another example of frameshift mutations, or all different types of mutations, but it's using these kind of strange analogy sentences. You can look over this if you want. I don't find it particularly. All right. This is going to get to really what's going on even with Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines. And so this is this idea of antisense mRNA therapy. So I'm going to start with this, and then we'll go back to the vaccines in a bit. So recall, we have the mRNA, right? So this is the mRNA. It's making a specific sequence. This sequence is going to get coded. It's going to get coded for a protein. Well, what's going to happen if this protein is bad? If it's something that makes you sick? Is there a way we can stop the body from making this protein? Well, if we have the antisense DNA or the antisense mRNA, it doesn't actually matter. You can see that the antisense copy, so let's just say this is AUGCA, whatever, right? The antisense here, and let's just say it's antisense mRNA. So be UTCGU, that's what would be here, is going to bond to that other side. And the DNA actually helps it bond more stably, so we'll call it DNA. So let me change this to, T, that's A, sorry about that. A and T again. So the antisense side is going to bond here. And once this is bound, then you're not going to be able to have tRNA match up because you already have this little strand of DNA matched up. So you won't form this protein at all. So an example of this, which is being used for a particular virus, is the virus of Ebola. And if you put the antisense DNA in to the cells of individuals who have the Ebola virus, it prevents Ebola from being able to make the proteins that it needs. And the specific ones would be the capsid, the viral coat. So this is a successful treatment for Ebola.